Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, for week 11, we are embarking on a really fascinating journey. We're going to travel from the absolute micro level of cybersecurity, I'm talking about the digital crime scene, and zoom all the way out to the macro level of global boardroom standards. It's an incredible progression. We'll start right in the technical weeds of uncovering hidden data and end up looking at how massive organizations actually prove to the world that their security is ironclad. All right, let's dive right in. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the digital forensics process. Second, capturing and preserving evidence. Then we'll pivot to the big picture with information security management systems, look at continuous compliance, and finally walk through the actual path to certification.
All right, Section 1, the digital forensics process.
You can kind of think of this as CSI Cyber. When a breach happens, you absolutely cannot just guess what occurred. You need cold, hard digital proof. Digital forensics is basically the process of uncovering and interpreting that electronic data. An absolute most critical part here, preserving the evidence in its pristine original form so you can accurately reconstruct past events. Because if you alter the data even slightly while looking at it, the evidence is legally useless. It's completely thrown out. So to make sure that evidence remains pristine, investigators have to follow 4 really rigid steps. Step 1 is preparation. This means defining the exact scope of the investigation and setting up your tools before you touch literally anything. Step 2 is data acquisition, which is where you carefully create unaltered copies or images of the drives or devices and verify their integrity. Then comes Step 3, data analysis. This is where the real detective work happens, recovering deleted files, decoding encrypted data, building out timelines. And finally, Step 4 is reporting. All those findings must be documented in a legally defensible report so that non-technical folks like lawyers or board members can understand exactly what went down. What's interesting is that this process requires a really strict split between administrative discipline and technical investigation. On one hand, you have to fiercely secure the chain of custody, meaning you can prove exactly who had access to the data at every single moment. Only after that's locked down do you deploy your specialized forensic tools to uncover the hidden truths. You really need both, the lockdown legal procedure and the deep technical analysis. Moving right along to Section 2, capturing and preserving evidence. Now, this is exactly where an untrained IT person can accidentally destroy an entire investigation in seconds. The order of volatility is essentially the digital investigator's ticking clock. You see, data doesn't just sit in one safe place. Some of it literally disappears the second a machine loses power. Highly volatile data lives in the CPU cache and the system RAM, while the more stable permanent data sits on hard disks and long-term backups. So you might be wondering, why does this order of volatility actually matter out in the real world? Say a hacker is inside your system right now. What is your very first move? Well, here's the deal. If you panic and simply pull the plug on a compromised machine, you instantly wipe out the CPU cache, the routing tables, and the RAM. And guess what? That highly volatile memory is exactly where the malware is actively running, and it's where the decryption keys are currently sitting. If you power down the machine before a forensic investigator can perform a memory capture, you've destroyed crucial evidence. You have totally ruined the chain of custody. You absolutely must capture that volatile data first. So how does an entire organization ensure it's actually ready for that level of intense discipline? Well, we have to completely shift our mindset from an outdated annual audit ritual where companies just scramble to check boxes once a year to a continuous compliance ecosystem. It's basically the difference between crash dieting for a physical exam versus maintaining a healthy daily fitness regimen. Which brings us to Section 3, Information Security Management Systems, or ISMS. The absolute gold standard for an ISMS is ISO 27001, and it's built entirely around this beautifully simple, continuous cycle: plan, do, check, act. In the plan phase, you identify your risks. In do, you implement your security controls, but pay close attention to check and act. Check is where you monitor performance and audit your systems. Act is where you take corrective actions based on what you found. Remember those forensic investigations we just talked about? That is exactly how the check and act phases function in the real world. A forensic analysis tells you exactly how a control failed during the check phase, which then allows management to update the entire system in the act phase so that specific breach never happens again. Section 4, Continuous Compliance with ISO 37301. Because the cybersecurity landscape changes literally every day, a company needs a permanent habit of adapting without improvising. Going through the immense effort to get ISO 3731 certification isn't just about dodging regulatory fines. Way beyond basic compliance and better risk management, it creates massive reputation improvement and gives you a distinct competitive advantage. It proves to the world that you have a deep ethical commitment to systematically securing data. You aren't just reacting to breaches, you have a culture of compliance baked right into your business processes, which, surprisingly enough, actually increases overall efficiency.
Finally, Section 5, the path to certification.
So, how do you actually get there? It's a rigorous journey. First, an organization has to conduct a gap analysis to see where they currently fall short of the standard. Next comes implementation, rolling out the new management system across the company, which heavily involves training your employees. Then, they have to conduct a brutal internal audit to catch their own mistakes, followed by a management review to assess overall performance. Only after all of that is perfectly polished do they contact an accredited certification body. That external body comes in, audits the whole system, and if the organization meets the strict requirements, they finally get certified. And even then, the work isn't done. They have to continuously monitor and improve to maintain that status. I really want to leave you with this fantastic quote from our source material. Compliance assessment is not an annual ritual. It is an ecosystem of feedback loops. I love this because it perfectly ties our entire journey today together. Think about it. That micro-level digital forensics investigator pulling data out of volatile RAM, they are generating the critical feedback that feeds the macro-level organizational standards. The micro protects the macro, allowing the whole company to evolve and stay secure. So, I want to leave you with this question to ponder today. Think about your own workplace, or even the companies you trust with your personal data. Are they just trying to pass an annual audit, or are they running a true ecosystem of continuous cybersecurity? It's a question that makes absolutely all the difference when a real digital crisis hits. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.